Connection has become the buzzword of 2026, but connection looks different in different places. Your church community and the manosphere/red pill community, they're different, but maybe not for the reasons we think. And in today's episode, I really want to talk about that. What does it take to build a thriving community filled with deeply connected people? I don't know, because connection doesn't happen on accident. It happens by design. Let's get it. All right.
Hello, Kristen KB Newton.
What's up, Des?
How you feeling today?
I'm hyped. I don't know about you, but have you ever just like woken up and you were, going about your day, minding your business, and then all of a sudden you see a post, and that post just gets you all kinds of fired up? That is me today. But that post is not what we're talking about today on the episode. So I don't even know if I want to let myself go there. I'm going to go ahead and stick to my script, which is community and how connection actually creates thriving communities that are filled with deeply committed people. Now, the other day I had a group of like 20 somethings to my house, and we were there to have a meeting, but we had dinner. And at the end of it all, I was like, hey, y'all don't have to leave. And they did not leave. And so we talked about relationships and community. And apparently I am a little bit far removed from all that's happening around the manosphere and red pill and all the things. I was like, I'm sorry, who's saying what, where, when, and who, mama? Like, like you don't have nobody in your life that'll look at you and be like, what are you talking about? Like, what are we talking about? Right? So, as I was listening to this dialogue, it made me ask the question, why is it that a Christian nationalist community or a red pill community or a manosphere community can have like thriving, raving fans, like unashamed, this is who I am, what I stand for, like say it loud, I'm proud, right? Like, how do you create that? But then sometimes in other spaces that are maybe, naturally perceived as positive, like churches or within a nonprofit cause or something like that, we cannot get people on board. Like, what is it? It's like pulling teeth to get people to participate, or pulling teeth to get people to really show up authentically and give their whole selves to the work or to the cause. What is that? And what's the difference? And I think that I have some insight about it that will be helpful to you as you're trying to think about the communities you want to be connected to, or how to revive or bring life to communities that you are either creating online or that you're just a part of in your day-to-day life. So this is what I'm thinking. Why toxic communities are thriving, why healthy communities are struggling. I think the answer is a little bit uncomfortable, but today I want to dive into the 5 levels of connection to really kind of expose what I think is happening. Now, if you're new to this space, in the 5 levels of connection, the top 3 levels are shallow. Okay. In those levels, you're exchanging information, you're exchanging your investments, and you're exchanging the return on those investments, which essentially just means that in order for people to build connection, if they think that it's mutually beneficial and that you give to me and I get something from it, and I give to you and you get something from it, that this relationship will actually work. What I think is happening on those first 3 levels is what nonprofits, churches, usually positive spaces are doing. They're calling people into sameness or into likeness, and then they're only asking them to show up, serve, and participate. Like, show up here, serve, and participate. Why? For the positive reasons of the outcome. Like, we're going to change people's lives. We're going to have incredible impact. People's lives are going to be changed for the kingdom, or whatever it might be. But if you think about why other spaces that might not be perceived as positive are actually thriving, it's not because they're calling people to show up, serve, and participate. They're calling people to a level 4 connection almost immediately. Now, what do I mean by this? On level 4, a person has to show up as themselves. Like levels 1, 2, and 3, we're exchanging currency, right? It's all about the exchange. But level 4 and level 5 are all about exposing who we are. And so you expose who you are when you have to identify with a clear identity. You expose who you are when you have a shared enemy. You expose who you are when there's a lot of emotional honesty in that space and when there's loyalty to a space, because your intent is revealed as a result of those things. And level 4 is all about building your connection on your shared intent. And so if you think about the manosphere community or the red pill community, these men are being called into a space where their intent and their belief system and their thoughts about women and their thoughts about men and gender roles and who should be doing what or who's entitled to what, all of that is exposing who they are. And in order to be a part of that community, you have to identify that very, very quickly. This is not about, it's really not even probably about the ideology, if I'm really getting technical about it. I think people get into those spaces and they're drawn by the message, but then they get in there and they feel seen, they feel heard, they feel valued and validated by the other people in those spaces who are also showing up transparently and vulnerably. And that is fostering a deep, meaningful connection with those individuals. This is level 4 connection. And this is actually where psychological safety lives when you're building community. If you can build a community of individuals who all come together for the same cause and can serve and contribute and put their resources in the pot and all the things, like, that's fantastic. But when you can create psychological safety in that space that gives those individuals the freedom to show up authentically, to learn and to say that they don't know, to contribute, not just their resources, but their ideas and their thoughts, but then not just that, but to challenge, oh my gosh, psychological safety shoots people straight into depth very, very quickly. And if you're just, as you're thinking about the communities that you're involved in, this is where that distinction is made. Because in some spaces, people, they will stay polite, they'll stay productive, we'll stay organized, and we will have it all on a spreadsheet, and we'll have the minutes of the meeting and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, this is all great in practice, but y'all aren't really fostering like a deep, meaningful bond in this space, right? A deep, meaningful connection in this space. Meanwhile, other communities that I would say are sometimes doing damage to the whole, right? They're calling people again to this space of level 4 intent immediately, because, that's what people want. And I don't understand, like, we can be the ones to point the finger and be very judgmental about, the groups that exist that we do not agree with. But you have to ask yourself the question, like, why are people latching on? Like, that's really all I'm here to kind of expose and to dialogue about. Why are people finding deep, meaningful connection in spaces that seem toxic or seem counterproductive or seem like they don't benefit the whole? Like why would somebody latch on to a space like that? Have we thought about that? Have we asked those questions? Because I think at the end of the day, belonging itself is morally neutral. It's morally neutral. So you can foster belonging around anything, like just or unjust. And until you understand that there's a neutrality to creating belonging, and belonging is not by default going to just come with the container that you think is a positive one that has a great cause, and that in all of this should or shouldn't stuff that we sometimes do with people. Like, no, belonging is morally neutral, and it is something that you have to curate and you have to foster. And if you understand the 5 levels of connection, it will be more easy to look at your communities, look at the spaces that you have brought together, and to figure out how to creatively curate belonging in those spaces. And so remember, belonging has nothing to do with goodness. Okay? Belonging has everything to do with depth of connection. The mechanics are the same, y'all. And this leads to an uncomfortable realization. We realize that the crisis of our time is not just about is there connection or isn't there connection. It's about a misplacement of belonging. And until healthy communities really learn how to create deeper connection, not just participation, people will continue looking for belonging anywhere that they can find it. So let's look at how this unfolds with the framework on the board. All right, y'all, welcome to the board. Let's break this down. So, as we've been talking about how people create community, oftentimes people are creating community on these levels right here. Let's just pick a color. We'll say these first three levels. Okay. This is where most spaces are creating community. What they're asking for is sameness here, right? They're collecting information, and if those people value the same things that they value, then that information leads to an opportunity to invest, which looks like participation. And then everybody keeps participating as long as there's a return on investment. So this is where most communities live, okay? These three levels. Where we're seeing success in other spaces that are fostering more of kind of like a cult following, so to speak, where people are like super like gung-ho, passionate, they've turned into ambassadors, they're recruiting people into those spaces, is once the culture of those communities taps into level 4 and level 5. And what's happening in these spaces is that there's an identity given to those individuals, and then there's a shared enemy most times, right? There's a shared set of values and thoughts and around, again, this identity and shared enemy. And then on the deepest level of intimacy, there is loyalty and there are stakes, meaning it will actually matter if we don't commit fully to this. If we don't remain loyal to this, it will actually affect us, change our lives, lead to consequences that we don't want. How many communities do you know, though, who are selling this? Who are leading with this messaging, who are telling people like it matters this much, that if you're not this involved, this grave thing will happen, or the thing that we really want to see happen won't happen. Most people don't. They're just like, hey, you should just kind of be involved, and we'd really love it if you serve, or we'd love it if you participate. And the energy is just different. And you know what I'm talking about. Like these groups and these groups hit different. These communities and these communities hit different. The types of people that are involved here do not actually have to commit their whole being to the cause. They just have to commit a few hours a week. They just got to show up to some meetings. They just got to check some boxes. These people right here, it's written all over them. And it's embedded in the very fiber of what they care about. And we see it in their involvement. So as you're thinking about the communities that you're fostering, if you're trying to call people to more deep and more meaningful connection to those community or to those communities or to those causes, think about the identity that they should be ascribing to. Or maybe even the enemy, like who is the villain in the story of the work that you're trying to do? And are they aware of that? And do they care enough to be committed to the cause to ensure that that villain does not succeed, right? And then also, let there be stakes. Because if there are no stakes in any story, right, then what difference does it make if I do or if I don't do? You think about these things, and I guarantee you'll find yourself fostering more deep and more meaningful community. Let's head to segment 3.
What's the difference between being involved in a community and actually feeling like you belong in it?
I think it's a good question that a lot of people can like immediately resonate with. Like, I think the difference is simply the level of connection. You can be involved in a community, level 1, 2, and 3, and have something to contribute, be getting something from that community, but not feel like you belong to it because those individuals don't actually know you. So the idea is that if I showed up as my most authentic self here, beyond what I had to contribute, right? Because contribution is a part of belonging. Like, it is a part of it. And that is a part of psychological safety. But what if I'm contributing and I don't feel like I can contribute in the way that feels most authentic to me? I have to kind of adapt to how everyone else is contributing in this space. So that could keep me from feeling like I actually belong to this space and that I'm not just a means to an end in this space. I'm not just another set of hands in this space, right? Sometimes people will feel that in their jobs. Like, I come to work, I do my job, I've been promoted, like, this is great, but these people don't know me. right? I don't belong here. I wouldn't identify as, you know, this as a space of belonging. Also, you could believe that it doesn't matter if I'm not here. And that is a telltale sign that you don't feel like you belong somewhere. Like, if it wouldn't matter if you were there or not, and you believe that, you don't feel like you belong. And some of this is coming from the 9 components of belonging taught by, oh, what's this guy's name? Oh, I'm gonna mess it up. Let me find it. Here we go. So according to Eric Carter, he says that there are 10 elements of belonging. We will feel as though we belong when we are present, invited, welcomed, known, accepted, supported, cared for, befriended, needed, and loved. And oftentimes, these elements are not exposed on levels 1, 2, and 3, where the culture is very transactional. And so, if a person was trying to differentiate, like, how do I know if I actually belong to a space? You get what I mean? Here are some of those differentiating factors, right? The context in which Eric Carter talks about this is as it pertains to belonging for those who have disability. And I just think the universal truths in all of the work. And so he says that you cannot belong anywhere if you're not able to be present in that space. It is impossible. And so the first domino, I think, to practicing belonging or cultivating belonging is by establishing a culture of belonging, or a feeling as though belonging starts with being able to be present. And I don't think a lot of spaces call people to even being present, right? I think belonging is something that you're invited into. Usually people are in spaces out of obligation. You get what I mean? Like, I wasn't actually like invited to a place. You think about that whole like feeling welcomed here. You know, you can come as you are. That's not also true for a lot of spaces. You cannot come as you are. You need to come as this. Like, this is the culture we've created. If you are not this, then you don't belong here. So again, without going through all of these characteristics, I think that's the biggest difference between being involved in something, you know, versus belonging in it.
Next question. Why do people sometimes find deeper belonging in unhealthy communities than in healthy ones?
My question to the question is, what defines an unhealthy community? But I do think that communities that rally around negativity or rally around the pain of others or rally around hurt at the expense of others, Brene Brown talks about this, how it's sometimes easier to do that because it makes you feel better about yourself to put someone else down. So those communities have a common enemy, and I think having a common enemy is the quickest way to rally people together. Like, give them all an enemy, and they'll all come like flocking, and the connection will be made deep quickly, because to connect over a common enemy requires you to share a little bit of who you are vulnerably and transparently. For example, if we both hate the same thing, that exposes who we are. To understand like the hate of another person, to then build a movement or a group around it, exposes like who we are, which means that we're going to bond more quickly. Versus like this community is being cultivated over planting trees together. You get what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like that, you might get some people together who want to plant the trees, but you could probably create a movement of people who want to plant trees if you talk about us all being impacted by the fires in California. You get what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, so I think cultivating communities over a problem, more specifically, or what you perceive as a problem, is a lot easier to do. All right. Well, here we are, y'all. We're at the end of another episode. Thank y'all so much for being in this space with me, for being a part of this conversation around connection, no matter what we're having the conversation about. And if you ever want me to talk about anything, you can always leave a comment beneath the video. You can always reach me on any of my social media platforms here on YouTube at KB Newton or on Instagram, Kristen KB Newton. I would love to hear about the things that you want to talk about and bring them up in the episodes. So until next time, I need you to remember, connection will not happen by accident. It will only happen by design. Peace, y'all.